Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and Blizzard has done it again, reigniting this community's love and passion for classic WoW by launching fresh classic realms for both progressive realms but also hardcore realms as well. Giving everybody that missed out the original launch of WoW Classic another opportunity to dive back into the experience with everybody else. And the amount of hype and popularity that these realms have been able to garner has been absolutely impressive yet again. So many players are trying to figure out what class they're going to be playing for Classic, especially when diving into the Classic Hardcore mode, which is where you simply have to level all the way from 1 to 60, but with a single life and no deaths. And dying in WoW Classic is very common, and there's so many ways that players have met their end. But you accidentally pull one too many mobs, or somehow find a way to aggro a very nasty caster, fireballing you from a distance, or potentially just walk into an unassuming cave, but all of a sudden the mobs around the cave respawn, blocking your exit where you meet your quick end. So making it 1 through 60 without any deaths is actually a proper challenge. And over the last few years of playing, trying and attempting this challenge, there have been statistics pulled together regarding which classes have the easiest and the best time overcoming this challenge. And that's what I really wanted to go over, all of the different classes and what you should probably be picking up for your first time as a solo player within Classic Hardcore. As always, if you want to see more World of Warcraft update videos like these, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. First things first, let's get the obvious out of the way and talk about the class of Warrior, which is renowned to be one of the hardest classes to level solo, especially within the environment of Hardcore. Technically, Warriors make for the best class when it comes to group content, talking dungeons and specifically raids. It is the best and really the only tank for Classic that can really perform at super high levels. But it is still the hardest class to play as a solo player. It's much better in a group content. But for some of you, with this class being the hardest, may actually be the challenge you're looking for. So it's not necessarily the worst class, but it's just the one that's going to be the most punishing if you're walking into this environment unprepared. This class requires a lot to be able to fully level it to max by yourself. It is a very gear-dependent class that has great scaling, but that means it's going to start out very slow at the beginning, so it's a bit of a burner. And there's not too many effective ways for a warrior, once they get in a dangerous situation, to disengage from a losing encounter, which is why they're so punishing. You gotta be aware of your environment at all times and always have some sort of an escape plan planned ahead of time, because you can't really erase a mistake as easily as some of the other options. But this still may be the best class if you want a pure, true challenge from the Classic Hardcore experience. Now, every other class from here on actually has a much easier and a very doable solo leveling experience, though the punishing aspect and the ease of play really does start to vary. If you were to put classes in the next tier, however, I would say things like Druids, Rogues, Warlocks, and Shamans are in a tier above Warriors. Starting with Druids, where they have a ton of healing capabilities with rescue spells, great mobility with all their shapeshifting, and passive survivability in bear form, but also fantastic damage in cat form that doesn't necessarily care about the type of gear that you wear, and Druids essentially can do all of it. They do start out a little slow, but they spike up pretty hard at level 10 and 20, and from there on they feel fantastic to level above that. They don't necessarily get that much better, but they get more tools and more skills in the utility, to the point where the open world for a druid, when played correctly, that you will really need to try in order to put yourself in a serious risk or a serious danger, because druids are designed for the open world content because their kit is just that good, making them a very safe solo leveling option. Rogue is another class that also has an advantage in open world because they have stealth, and in most cases, unless your stealth breaks for some reason, they can get around certain places to have an easier time when it comes to singling out enemies or picking up quest rewards and sneaking your way out of there very quickly. They also have a fantastic control kit, better than some of the other classes out there, and decent bit of survivability as long as your cooldowns are available. Plus, the ability to vanish out and sprint away from danger is incredibly good as long as you can plan around those major cooldowns. What's so punishing about playing a rogue, however, is they don't have survivability or healing compared to some of the other classes, and very similar to a warrior, if you overpull too many enemies or don't plan a escape plan accordingly, you definitely can put yourself in a situation where you can easily die when playing this class. So rogues require a little bit of preparation for multiple encounters, and you are basically forced to play very safe if you want to have the easiest time getting to max level. Shaman is another class that also has a fantastic start early on, but the later levels don't feel quite as powerful for the class of Shaman, so they have a really good head start, but as they get to max level, it does start to become a little bit of a grind because your kit and your resources and all those things don't really necessarily get too much better. The class has a bunch of different totems which all have helpful uses for a variety of different situations. They have plenty of healing, so survivability is not an issue, and they can play it as a melee or as a caster, and they generally are a great class when it comes to leveling in hardcore, as long as you know your limits, because shamans, like I said before, don't necessarily scale too heavily as they get towards max level. You do need to know your limits in regards to mana, in regards to what you can pull, what cooldowns are available, so you need to be very careful the entire time that you're leveling to max level. Warlock is another class with plenty of great survivability, and even a tanking demon that helps keep them protected, so you have multiple different levels of making sure that you survive most encounters. Warlocks and generally have very good damage when it comes to playing out solo, and they can burst down enemies in an instant. They're generally really good, but they only have one big weakness, and that is a lack of mobility in Classic. Fear as an ability can be great for fearing an enemy away to disengage from an encounter, but fears on a mob running in all random directions can also pull unwanted attention towards the Warlocks as well. And that is where that lack of mobility can really put you in a tough spot. So they generally do have a very good time leveling, but they also need to be really aware of their environments, which is something that they share with rogues, druids, as well as shamans in terms of their leveling within hardcore. Now, the classes that are a tier above that, I would say, would be priests, paladins, and hunters, which get into more safer territory in terms of class options. And these, while they may not all be the fastest leveling options, are still some of the safest out there. Priests, for example, are incredibly tanky. Even if they wear cloth gear, they have multiple different absorbs, shields, buffs, and all these things to increase the fortitude out in the open world. So keeping yourself alive as a priest is just way too many tools and way too many skills to help you do that. They also have a very good leveling spike early on, and they continue to get only better as they reach maximum level. However, they do have one little requirement that can put them behind though, and that is having a good wand at your side for early levels. Because as a priest, you can spec into a wand spec in order to be able to get a little bit extra value from the passive damage that you can provide, plus a wand allows you to be able to deal damage without necessarily consuming mana that you can use for survivability, which gives you a very consistent leveling experience. Besides the little requirement, like I said, they are very consistent with very little slowdown and very little downtime when going from enemy to enemy, from quest to quest, from zone to zone, and they generally have a very smooth leveling experience. Not the fastest, but generally a really safe one. Another class that's in a very similar boat is the Paladin, which is basically a priest, but a melee version, with plenty of healing, lots of defensive tools, and different blessings that you can provide for yourself in order to get you out of a variety of different situations, as well as some of the best disengages with Bubble Hearth. If you really are in a tight situation and there's absolutely nowhere for you to go, Bubble Hearth into safety, and then you get yourself a one little cheeky reset in order to be able to get you out of those bad situations. Which what really makes Paladins a very safe pick as long as you allow those cooldowns to fully cool down in order to before traveling out into the wide unknown. They are a very notoriously slow leveling spec, however, but a reliable one if you have the patience as you make your way all the way to level 60. Then we have the class of the Hunter, which easily falls in the same tier as the other two. It is definitely one of the more popular classes in the game, probably second most popular class when it comes to hardcore leveling in particular. Most players assume that Hunters are actually a class that's great for new players and noobs, but in fact, there's actually a lot more going on with this playstyle in particular, especially once you get access to a pet. Hunter's reliance on a pet is an interesting one because it's a double-edged sword. Technically, the pet can be incredible early on, as it's basically your own personal tank as you level out through the open world of Azeroth, but you also have to deal with pet AI. And in Classic, pets also tend to pull mobs that you don't really mean to fight against, so easily hunters can get outnumbered if they're not careful managing not only themselves, but also the pet's positionals. And that is where really you have a separation between the good hunter players and not great ones. Hunters that are able to manage themselves and their pet will probably have one of the easiest and the best journeys out there, but players that are not super experienced with the game may actually end up falling in a hole when it comes to the pet and just how many enemies and how much attention it can draw towards you. The only real conditional for hunters is to try to reach level 30 as soon as possible, and if you can do that safely, then be Leveling beyond 30 is going to be easy with the ability of Feign Death, which might be one of the best disengage tools. If you ever are in trouble, have nowhere else to go, a Feign Death can easily get you out of a tough situation as long as it doesn't get resisted. But with this ability alone, this allows hunters to statistically be one of the most reliable leveling options out there, and one of the few classes that can almost easily get to max level compared to the rest of the options. However, there's only one class that can go above priests, paladins, and hunters, and that is the mage, because they statistically have the highest chance of all classes on reaching maximum level of 60 based on all of the data that we've been able to collect over the last few years. And by that, I mean about 1 every 5 mages reach level 60 on a server, and usually your server's first level 60 character is almost always a mage. That's just how good this class is. Some players even describe him as the hero class of Classic before they added the class of Death Knight. Mages have everything from incredible control tools as well as the ability to disengage from fights rather easily, with some of the best in combat mobility with Blink. You have plenty of ways to control your enemies with slows, roots, but also plenty of utility like food, water, ability to travel the world with portals, immunities to shield yourself from danger, but also shields and absorbs to protect you from incoming damage. There are an incredibly self-reliant class that literally does not need anybody else in order to help him explore and tackle and even obliterate the open world. Whether you're leveling solo, frostbolting enemies from 30 yards away where they literally cannot reach you ever with the frost magic slowing down their steps, or if you're AoE grinding with blizzards, absolutely decimating through multiple mobs, farming out the experience, plus also farming gold, mages are the best at literally everything out there, whether it is PvE content, PvP, or especially leveling in classic hardcore. Out of all the classes out there, mages have one of the best starts of any playstyle out there, and it continues to grow stronger and stronger as you reach your way towards level 60. So this class continues to scale up and up and up. Where some classes feel like they stagnate or their journey potentially gets harder, mages are able to continue to grow in power to meet the challenges all the way to max level. So if you're looking for one of the best solo experiences, literally everybody recommends playing a mage as a new player. However, like we mentioned at the beginning, skill and knowledge of a class is probably going to take you much further than just being able to pick the technically best class for solo hardcore. But if you're a brand new player, you don't really know exactly which class you want to pick up for Classic, mages statistically may be one of the best options to at least get you started and dipping your toes into this proper Classic challenge. As always though, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community for all the World of Warcraft updates. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.